believe they are.
So it's been treated. It's not like it already was a county road.
I don't understand why it says it's not a road now at this point. If we scrape it, we put a sign up on it, and it's on Google Maps.
We need to make sure it's on our LD number too,
And
so we can.
it's deeded. I don't know.
Is that's that Nate Baldwin?
Oh, I remember that now. Because it wasn't in a wooded area through it or something. And he thought it was, and somebody else didn't think it was, and it went back.
He thought he was paying property taxes.
I remember that was what the issue was. All right, moving on, Commissioner Gillis, you got something with Misty Hampton?
Yeah. It's been several days ago, I think, we got an email talking about, and it was the first time I had ever seen this, but we received an email about an open records request regarding some election work that somebody named Misty Hampton had done for Treutlen County. And the county paid her $20,000. And I just have some concerns about that, because I talked with the county manager. He said he reached out to her. And I want to know who interviewed her and who hired her.
Can you speak to that, Commissioner Hudson? You used to be the elections board and understand how all that works better than the rest of us. So,
like Commissioner Gillis said, she and I spoke about it. So it was during the time that I resigned from probate court judge, and I was running for statewide office. I had known Misty Hampton from my prior work as an election superintendent. She had actually worked over in Douglas County. So as we go to training yearly, I've known Misty Hampton. She had done work prior in other counties handling elections. And this is not a one-time bill. She actually done 2 elections for Treutlen County. And it's not like one day of paying her. She done the LNA testing, which is logic and accuracy testing. That typically takes about 2 days with that and poll pads. 3 weeks of advanced in-person voting. She was here every day for that. All day on election day. That's 14 to 16 hours. Then you have about 3 days that you have to complete the election. She done that twice, because we had an election and we had an election, a runoff.
Sure.
So we reached out to her. She charged, I think, weekly that we paid her. It was not a one-time $20,000 bill. She charged us weekly. We paid her for handling the election for Treutlen County.
what department does that come out of? To
Probate magistrate court, yes.
So that's up under that constitutional jurisdiction?
That's correct.
Who at that point was our...
We didn't have
one.
Right.
So we had none because you had...
Right.
The spot was vacant.
Right.
Okay.
And you have to have a certified person to run elections in the county.
Okay.
So we didn't have anybody that we can reach out to. Like I said, I knew her. Another judges, they were busy. They couldn't come. I reached out to her. She came on here and ran the election for us.
Okay.
She ran elections with other counties before?
Yes.
She's... is that what she's in the business of doing now that she's not in that... Was she not in that role in, you said Douglas County? Is
Right.
that
I don't think she's doing it anymore. I'm not sure.
County.
Coffee County. I'm sorry. Coffee. Yeah, Coffee County. So I don't think she's doing it anymore. So.
Okay, so you got more questions, because I got some more.
Sure.
Okay, so you agreed to pay her, was it a flat rate or by the hour? How was it to be paid?
I assume it was by the hour. She turned in a bill weekly to Miss Angie.
And you didn't come up with an amount, it was just whatever she was gonna send in that week or so?
I think it was, I'm not sure. I think it was $1,500 a week, I think that's what it
I don't
was.
remember
I
right.
don't
We have a
remember.
I don't
contract.
do the accounts
It was not a
payable, but she
contract.
did turn the invoices into our office.
It was not a contract. Okay. And you don't know how much she was charging. So she just had an open budget or whatever as to what she wanted to charge. And who approved that?
Well, I approved it as a county manager.
Okay. Do you have the authority to approve something like that as county manager? Because I was thinking...
We get bills all the time less than, if it's $1,500 a week, we don't bring it before the board. I mean, people send us bills in here all the time, and I don't bring that before the board, so what's the difference?
The difference to me is that you agreed to pay somebody $20,000 and the board didn't approve it. And it doesn't matter to me whether they send a check, a bill every day. When you're talking about that kind of money, don't nobody but the board have the authority to approve that. It's my understanding.
So how much was, let me ask you this. It was in the, so that's probate office. We didn't have anybody probate, so that falls back to the county at that point to find somebody to run the elections, I assume? Okay. The, I'm just trying to understand it, because I mean, this is before my time, obviously, so. Now, who all does, I mean, who all do you get to do in a situation? I know you, when you were probate, I think you had gone to other counties to run it. We didn't have an election. How do you find somebody, I guess is what I'm asking. How does that process, are there people that do this?
Through your networks. It's just people that you meet that you know, you reach out to them and ask them, hey, can you run an election?
At that point, was she still, what was she doing at that point? Was she still with a county, or she was doing a private service?
She's doing a private service from my understanding.
Okay. But she was doing it for other counties as well, or
Yes.
is this?
Yes.
You was the chief election official for this county for how long?
17 years.
All right. So you was requested to step down because you decided to run for state office, so it left a void in this county, right?
That's correct.
All right. Now you knew that this county had to run an election, right?
That's correct.
And you knew there was no one else in this county to run that election, correct?
That's correct.
What other avenues did you have other than this lady? Because you went out and done it. I mean, did the people put machines, they offer to come run it or somebody like
But it
that?
cost us more. If Dominion had to send a technician down for that amount of time, it would cost a, typically an election before we consolidated, it would cost the county $15,000 per election.
So knowing that cost and knowing that you had the background that this county's entrusted you to run elections for 17 years, you took it upon yourself as county manager to see that we had an election that run smoothly with no hiccups and was going to cost us regardless.
Right. And it was cheaper.
And it was cheap.
But it was still at a rate that was not approved by the board, right?
Was that in the probate county's budget?
Yes.
Did it,
And we
did
did not
it-
go over budget.
Did it not go over the probate county's budget? So
No.
that's that.
But
Now,
now,
did you-
I got
I
some more
want to
questions.
ask you one more question. When you went out and worked other elections in your duty when you were still probate, how did you charge? Did you charge, or was that
So, yes, I charged.
okay? So basically,
Flat
you charged a flat rate, very similar. Was it a similar rate to what you approved here from Ms.
It was
Hampton?
higher.
So when you went to Wheeler County to run their elections, you charged more than what she charged us to run ours?
She paid me $30,000 to run that election.
So this is a common thing that happens
Yes,
in
sir.
counties.
Did she have access to the voting machine software?
She has to do logic and accuracy testing.
Okay. So, have you had anybody to check since she worked over here to see if there was a software breach?
I'm not the election supervisor, no, I can't grant that authority.
Okay, but you did all the hiring and all that stuff, right? You had the authority to do that?
That's before we filled the
That's
position.
before we filled the position.
Yeah.
Since that time, so your question to me is, has anyone checked?
Yeah, to see if there was a software breach or anything on that voting equipment.
They've had elections since that time, and it hasn't been any problems.
They have?
They've had elections since that time, and it has not been any problems.
Judge
When did we have an election?
Judge McClendon's right behind us.
Have you had Q&A checks on machines since?
Has there been any, have you been made aware of any issues, that there were breaches or any issues with someone from outside coming and running our elections before you got there? Or?
No, sir. It's being looked into now.
Okay.
Because of the request.
Okay.
May I speak?
Yeah, we can let Jim.
Well, it may be helpful to make sure that we.
I just got one more question, if I can get that in. Okay, so my concern, it came because it was an open record request, and this lady was saying she did not receive the information she was asking for. Now, it's my understanding that if there's an open records request, then we have to honor it, right?
I think there's a fee that has to be paid, and then we honor it.
But it has to be honored within a few days. Is that not right?
Once the fee's
It has to
paid.
be responded to within 3 days, and then you're supposed to get the information as quickly as possible.
Okay. So why wasn't it done? Did she not pay, or did somebody not send her
That's what I'd
bill or
like to
whatever?
address.
This is what I was bringing him involved, because I mean,
Okay.
So apparently, when I was forwarded this open records request, let me back up. Since the time that I came on as county attorney, I cannot tell you how much time the county and resources the county spends responding to open records requests about elections. Ever since the last presidential election and all the conspiracy theories that have been floated around by the left and the right concerning them, everybody and their brother wants every bit of information that we have. We have traditionally not charged anyone for this, and Tiffany and her staff, Angie, TJ, and everybody has to go and spend county time responding to these things, and they're the same things over and over. So when we got this one, once I was told about it, I called, because these were a little bit more particularized in the regards to this Miss Hampton. They were wanting the county to search for every email, telephone call, contact, etc., etc. And one of the things about open records requests is we don't have to provide something that we don't have. So I called the number to speak to Miss Greenlaw and to frame a little bit better what she was asking for. In other words, hey, what are you trying to get to? And if we can get what we have to you on that topic, we'll do that. Well, she started going down some, for lack of a better term, I'll call it a stump speech about the evils of this Miss Misty Hampton, who I wouldn't know if she walked in that door, and how we had hired a criminal to help run our elections, that she was being investigated by various criminal agencies, and this, that, and the other. And I'll be quite honest with you, it set me off. I asked her if she was aware of any voting irregularities in our county, and she said no. I asked her if she was aware of any kind of audit that had been performed that said that our elections were run in any way that were not in compliance. She said no. I asked her what agencies were performing criminal inquiries so that I could direct any kind of information I had to them. She would not tell me. And then I'll just be straightforward. I said, ma'am, where are you from? I'm from New York. What's that got to do with it? And I asked her who was going to pay the bill for us in this small little county to satisfy her political agenda. And then asked her what her stake in this matter was, that if the taxpayers of this county were being served fine, why she cared. And she began to tell me how that our election spending would affect her taxes in New York. And I'm going to be honest with you, at that point, with everything else that this county's got going on, I said, fine, ma'am, we'll get to you when it's time. And we have forwarded the information that we have to her. I've told her that we will, figure out what cost will be appropriate. And this is something I actually have mentioned to Angie, I think, about us coming up with a standard fee that we set to people, that if they don't pay up front, we don't go through the monkey dance that they want to put us through for their own event. We're talking about someone can sit here and go, I want this, and then we have to spend all of our county's employees' time to do it, and we're not charging them. And this was going to be something I was going to bring up and request that we set, that before we even do a response to anyone on an open records request, that they put $100 up. We'll keep up with our time, and if there's a balance left over, we'll refund it. But otherwise, this has gotten ridiculous. This whole thing about you asking about Dominion voting systems, Fox News just settled a lawsuit where they paid $787 million to Dominion because of all the reporting that they did about these, stuff that was rumors. There's got to be some reality point. We're trying to pass a budget here. It's very difficult. We're trying to fix a 911 system. It's very difficult. And at some point, when you've got county employees, you prioritize their time. So,
I got one more statement that might help some of the heartburn I feel Commissioner Gilson may have. But at this time, would you say that this would be more accurate as you said that you got this lady, but actually wasn't you working on behalf of the county as county manager, directing someone who was appointed in your position who actually was still running that office, that run that election? Was Jackie in charge at that time? So actually, the same office was still doing the same thing.
Right.
You more or less, instead of saying you approved this, you was actually just trying to help her go through the muddy waters of what to do on the new task that she had inherited temporary until an election, correct?
Right, because she's not certified.
What elections did she do for us?
There's a special election of 2020, I think, and then the
one?
runoff.
What election was that?
Which ones? Okay, so the
It's a special election.
Oh, the one in January?
Yes,
Well, that would have been 21, I guess.
21. That's right.
Was that the Senate runoff or whatever?
No, it was whenever I resigned, so it was a special election for my seat.
Okay.
So I can't remember that year. And then it was a runoff following.
the Senate runoff.
No, probate judge's runoff.
Okay.
Judge McClendon went into a runoff.
So it was the elections she ran were the local elections.
It was a local elections.
There was no state. Were there any statewide or federal elections on
That ballot?
That ballot, either of the ballots?
I'm not sure.
No, it wasn't.
I don't think
It's
so.
just for probate judge.
So there was only the only outcome, if there was anything done, was just affects our county only.
No, but I don't know.
Well, if that was only only Treutlen County people were on the ballot, then.
But if you have a software breach, I don't really know how that stuff works.
But that's, Judge McClendon stated earlier that everything's been checked by the state, I assume the state or Dominion, I don't want to speak out of turn, but, so it's been checked since those elections were run and there's been no breaches or anything, any issues noticed?
I just asked that question, but my concern is the $20,000 when most of the time you don't get paid. What's the average? You said, what does an average superintendent of an election make? Just the daily rate or whatever?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
But you said Dominion was it Dominion? You said if they brought their people in to run it was $15,000 per election.
That's what it cost us before we consolidated.
So if we'd have done 2 elections with them, it would cost us $30,000.
Correct.
This Miss Hampton did it 2 elections for $20,000.
Correct.
I'll take the $10,000 savings. Was it
So would I be correct that we have just spent all this time when we have all these local issues that TV cameras are here to cover this lady who's a certified election supervisor covering 2 local elections that has had nothing to do with anybody outside of this county because of someone from New York pitching a fit?
That's correct.
Give me a break.
That's not correct.
Any more? You got any more questions?
No, I didn't.
We'll move on from that. Let's go to budget amendments.